On this episode of Travels with Bill, we're in Winnipeg, Manitoba, on the east side at Symington Yards. This is a train lover's paradise. Symington Yards is CN's classification yard in Winnipeg. They do a lot of train sorting here and obviously some train storage too. The yard can hold 7,000 cars. It can sort 3,000 cars a day. If you're going east and west in Canada through Winnipeg on the CN rail system, you're coming through the CN yard here. Symington Yard is unavoidable on the network. It's a big deal. In the bottom of your screen, we're going over top of the hump, and further on you can see all the different tracks where they build up trains. A few minutes later, we're going to show you exactly how that hump works and watch some sorting a train. As a kid, I used to beg to come see this place. You can drive down Fermor Avenue and catch a view of it from the overpass. It's not nearly as good as you're going to see today with the drone, though. From the overpass, you just see a bit. But certainly there's always lots of trains here, and you can quite often see operations taking place, as long as you know where to look. Symington Yard isn't just popular now. If we go all the way back to the 1960s, we can even find some archival footage of just how important the yard was. This is from a piece of a film where they were showing the new technology of the trains sorting themselves with the help of some computer control. Things have come a long way since then, but the basics are still the same. The cars roll down the hill. Speaking of cars, check out what it used to look like before they had covered auto racks. You used to be able to see the cars going by on the train. Then vandals kind of ruined that for everyone. So back to modern day here, a train's just backed up the hump. Now from our vantage point, it's hard to see there's a hill here, but there is. Where that boxcar is the top of the hill. In fact, that tanker car is already rolling down it. You back the train up the hill, you decouple the car, and it rolls away. These days, it's a lot of computer control. Back in the 1960s, there wasn't as much. They had to do more manually, but it's getting better and better. Nowadays, the computer knows by car number where the car is going to go and sorts it. Up in the top corner is the control tower, so they can see the hill operations plus where the cars end up. That tanker car is just hitting the braking system right now. Those computer-controlled brakes make the car slow down, so it's not going too fast. As you can imagine, each car goes a different speed from its weight and its size and even where the wheels are. It needs to be going the right speed to go into the lineup of cars to hit the next one and couple, but not to derail. They also don't want it going so slow that it gets stuck someplace and gums everything up. We're going to watch here as some sorting goes on. I know for some people it's a little boring, but if you're into trains, this is hot stuff to see a train being sorted. There goes the next car. That's the first three of the train. Now the next few here are all going to the same track, but they're all going to be split off separately. They'll be recombined. You can probably guess what has to happen at some point. Somebody has to go reconnect all those air lines for the braking system. Well, that's a job that can't be computerized. Someone will take that walk later on and get the trains ready to go. More cars on their way, and perhaps we should follow them to see where they're going. There's some great train watching opportunities in Winnipeg. We'll watch the cars, we'll talk about how they're being sorted, but let's look at what else you could do when you're in the city. Not too far from here is Tinkertown, and while that's a great place to take your kids, it's also a great place to watch trains. The main CN line goes across right there. It's just to the east of this rail yard. That means there's a lot of trains. The neat part is you can also see the signals pretty easy. It doesn't take a lot of looking to know if a train's coming. So if you see a green signal, you know it's worth waiting around, and pretty soon a train will go on by. One of the neatest things I've ever filmed is the train at Tinkertown, because they have a miniature one that you can ride on alongside the big one behind it. If you get the shot just right, you see both trains going by at the same time. Of course, if you don't get the shot just right, you can wait all day to try and time it perfectly. You can see sorting continues on here. That one car has gone quite a bit further north than the other car has switched itself to. All the different switches work, of course, to move them around to the right spot. If you look really close, you'll also see that first black tanker car we saw. It's sitting there all by itself now. We're going to follow along with these gray cars as they eventually hook together and couple up. If you're not into waiting for trains, fast forward a little bit and I'll do the same shot in speed mode so you can see very quickly how it worked without having to wait for it. This is shot in real time though. It's certainly not a super fast process, so you can understand how the limit here is about 3,000 cars a day. Not every train needs to be sorted though. Imagine a train coming in from the west coast, perhaps a container train. If it's a unit train, there's no need to sort it before it moves on. It'll pull into the yard, get a crew change, and then off it goes. The same thing is true for a lot of grain trains these days. Quite often, they're unit trains of grain. There's no need to sort those cars. So it's a little misleading when we say only 3,000 cars a day can be sorted here. Well, quite easily, 100 cars or more could go by on a train that didn't need to stop at the yard. There's bypass tracks, they're to our south here, and you'll see quite a lot of trains skip around the yard so they don't have to stop for sorting. Well, 3 cars in a row now heading on in, and you'll see they're actually going to hit those other cars of the same color a little bit further ahead. Hitting cars is a good thing, as long as it's not too fast. The way the couplers work, they need to slam together a little bit. That'll make sure the cars are well attached. If they weren't attached, you'd have to come and do some adjusting on the cars with the locomotive. But if things go right here, you'll see each car hit the next, they'll all couple up, and there's no work to do except for connecting the airlines. We'll swing around a little bit here so you can see the cars as they couple, and you'll actually see there's enough force in the cars, even though they're moving so slow, to move the whole line of cars back a bit. On the top of your screen, you're seeing the intermodal yard. There's a lot of work going on there too. That's where containers come off the trains and go onto trucks for final delivery. Then the process gets reversed. The trucks bring empty containers back, or in some cases full ones. They get loaded back on the train, and off the train goes. This yard's a little hard to see if you're on foot. There's not a great bridge, but there is actually a different yard in Winnipeg, the CP yard. It doesn't have a hump, but if you go to Arlington Street, there's a bridge right over top of the yard, and it has a pedestrian walkway on it, so you can actually walk over top. Well, here's what we've been waiting for all this time. The cars are about to strike gold. They're going to couple up with their friends and become, well, what will be a train once we get a locomotive hooked onto it a little bit later on. This could be one of the best examples of sorting because so many cars on that train they're sorting right now need to go into the same line. You can see the actual speed that they come down if it's car after car. What's up with that gap? Well, something must not have gone quite right in the speed system because there's a bigger gap between 2 cars and the other one. It's going to work out fine though, they will all couple up. Here it comes, the first car is coming in and it's going to hit, and the next one too. Now if you look really close, you can see those other cars moved a couple feet from it. We'll zoom in here a little bit for the next 2 so you can see it better. When we zoom it gets a little fuzzier, but you'll still see this good enough to know exactly what's happening as the next car strikes. This would certainly be quite the thing to do a layout on in HO modeling, wouldn't it? To have that much track. Of course, you need a pretty big basement to make it work. Oh, a bird flew by. Who knew? All right, here comes the car. Let's see it move. You're going to see it hit. You'll see those other cars move too. There it goes. It's all pushed over. The next one's going to come in. The whole line's still moving a little bit, and it gives them a little tap too. Now, I did promise I'd show this to you a little faster in case you were kind of sick of waiting. So here goes the fast version of it as we see those cars sort and quickly roll down the track to connect up with their friends. We're watching at 8 times normal speed here, so it does look a lot more fun. Imagine if they could sort trains this quickly. Well, they may have to build an observation deck for us to watch that much action. Symington Yard was built in 1962. It replaced the Transcona and Fort Rouge yards, and it's named for the former CNR director, Herbert James Symington. Have you subscribed to Travels with Bill? Hit that subscribe button. You'll see all our videos when they're first released. Not just trains, but all sorts of interesting things from all over Canada. A final look at the yard now, then a quick peek at the Winnipeg skyline. From Winnipeg, Manitoba at Symington Yard, farewell for now. We'll see you next time on the next episode of Travels with Bill.